Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery preparing to check in on a couple of my worm bins. And before we get the camera trained down on the systems that we're going to be working on, I thought I'd share a little bit of information about them with you. The systems we're checking in on are yellow buckets that have African night crawlers living in them. I don't think I mentioned that here, did I? Or is it red wigglers? Did I make a typo? I did. I'm sorry. I just thought it was kind of interesting because the food that I came prepared with, this will make sense in a minute. I've got orange colored food. It's a whole bunch of orange peels, which a lot of people might say citrus is a no-no in a worm bin. I don't 100% agree, but that's a topic for a different day. But I guess the whole idea here was that I thought that I might write the word orange down here to show what we're feeding them, and I thought that red and yellow together, the yellow buckets that we're going to be working on, would be an interesting kind of play on words, how the red wigglers and the yellow buckets, red and yellow makes orange. So whatever, it's not the only typo. You could see a couple other things where I had to scribble over my mistake, but basically the systems are 170 days of age today, and I've got some other stats about them. The other notable thing is just the number of times that the systems have been fed, where bucket number 1 was fed a few times more than bucket number 2. It's because bucket number 2, over here again, another of my typos, bucket number 2 was subject to a set it and forget it test where we didn't even really work on the system for about 7 weeks. So we're going to start down here in bucket number 1 and get them fed, and then we'll make our way over to bucket number 2 after. During the last check-in, we did something in these buckets that I normally don't do, which was kind of do a deep dive and till around the entire contents of the system. So where in the past we would normally just kind of excavate a spot down the middle to apply the food, the past couple times, or at least definitely the last time, we tilled up the outer edges. And then the other thing we did was we tried to react to what we've been noticing in these systems for the past few check-ins, which was the apparent excess moisture situation that's been going on here. So to address the excess moisture situation, we've been coming in here with a good bit of dry bedding, basically just a bunch of shredded cardboard and paper. And one thing we did was we tilled up this edge of the bin, dug down deep, and mixed in a bunch of dry bedding. Same thing over on this edge. And then we proceeded to the excavation of the center of the bin, which is where we normally apply the food. And I don't think it's going to be necessary to go plowing down into the outer edges of the systems like we've been doing, or at least like we did last time. Today I think we're just going to stick to plopping in their yummy, fragrant meal of delicious orange peels, and just, a quick recap of the statement I made earlier about how some people feel that citrus is a no-no in the worm bins. I mean, most people know that citrus, if you get a little bit of lemon juice or even orange juice to some degree onto a little cut on your finger, or perhaps some of it squirts into your eye, you can feel the acid. There's citric acid, and acid coming in contact with some worm skin is probably a very unpleasant thing. So I'm sure if we were to drip a little bit of citric acid onto these little guys, that might not do them in, but I'm sure they'd be very displeased with us doing that and go squirming away to try to get that stuff wiped off their bodies, and they'd probably be in a fair bit of discomfort until such a time that they could get that stuff off themselves. But it does seem to me like that acid neutralizes pretty rapidly in a worm bin, and then the worms are able to make their way into the citrus food and take advantage of it as not only a source of food, but as a source of moisture too. So I'm not concerned in the least with giving them citrus today. In addition to the yummy orange that they're getting, I'm plopping in a paper towel, a couple soiled napkins as the bedding that we're going to give them to complement the food. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to the next check-in, because I bet you we're still going to be able to smell the fragrant aroma of the oranges, or orange peels. I mean, there is half of a little tangerine The other half is going to go into the other system, into bucket number 2 when we get over there to feed. So, yeah, usually even after maybe 10, 12, 14 days, I'm not sure how long it'll be before the next time we come in here, although 12 days from now is going to be the point in time when these systems reach exactly 6 months of age. So, as you can see, 12 days since the last check-in. And if we wait another 12 days, we will have reached 182 days of age, which is what most people would consider to be the technical half a year point in time. The last time I ran systems in my buckets here, I had not only 2 systems, but I had 4 systems. And in those systems, I had red wigglers. Not like here where we've got African night crawlers. And, the red wigglers got moved out of those buckets into my Vermibag Mini. And they didn't just get kind of moved over as just the worms only, but I pretty much emptied the buckets into the Vermibag Mini, and you know, that was it. They went over there with their finished castings and everything, and they continue over in the Vermibag Mini. So just really quick, back to what we sprinkled in here. Some people might have questioned, what was that you're sprinkling? And that's pulverized eggshell. And the worms do benefit from having some form of small particle matter that's coarse and hard that they ingest with the foods that they're going to eat, and they utilize that as grit. So that's what I was adding there. And now we can proceed to feeding bucket number 2. Once again, it's going to be kind of just a quickie check-in, drop in the food, make sure everything looks as it should, and then we'll move on. So, well, nowhere to move on from here. This is the last of it. Yeah, in the past I've run, 5 buckets at a time. Eventually that got worked down to only 4 buckets after I had had a friend of mine who asked if he can be hooked up with some worms, and what I ended up doing was just basically giving him one of the 5 buckets I had running, and then, as I mentioned earlier, the remaining 4 buckets, after they hit 6 months of age, were transferred lock, stock, and barrel as is right into my Vermibag Mini. Here, I'm not quite sure how we're going to play it when the time comes to start gearing these little guys up for harvesting their castings and relocating the worms to some other place. I have actually thought about doing something similar with respect to just, transferring them out of these containers into a place where I'm able to operate a little bit more easily and not be so cramped for space. Because, when you're used to working in a bus bin or a larger system, it's just so much easier to work. You got space to move things back and forth and pile things up, and even when the time comes to try to dry the systems off, you've got so much more surface area that allows for evaporation of moisture if that's what you're after. So I have thought about possibly just transferring these systems over into bus bins so that they can kind of gear up for harvest of their castings in a place where I can possibly manage the work a little bit more easily. So, like I said, not a lot of fanfare with regards to checking in on these buckets today. I mean, we did actually till a little bit down into the side of the other bucket, into bucket number 1. So why don't we just take a quick peek, as long as we're kind of attempting to remain consistent in the 2 systems. I guess I'm just curious to see if the abundant dry bedding that I dropped in 12 days ago is becoming something that the worms are able to take advantage of, or is it just sitting there in a big pile unused? It does seem like I did a pretty good job last time blending the stuff in so that it doesn't just sit there idle and not utilized by the worms. It does seem like it's actually getting used as bedding, which was the whole idea. I mean, the whole idea was really to put in something that might absorb some of the excess moisture that I was observing. But obviously, when you're putting in stuff like that, the main idea is typically bedding. So that's it for our check-in, everyone. nice quick little visit with the yellow buckets and the African night crawlers, not red wigglers. And apologies for the typo and the sloppy writing on the green board. I got to start paying closer attention. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.